You mentioned that it is very easy to be wrong and very difficult to be right, and I believe you are referencing the riskiness of firebrand tactics. But why is it difficult to be right when armed with myriad facts supporting the atheist viewpoint?
It's like a self-answering question. I don't quite, like if you're right, then obviously you are right. So, I guess the problem is that it's easy to think that you're right. I mean, you think that you have all the facts, and then you don't. So,
I think this is basically saying atheists are right? So why can't we just get in people's faces about it?
are they right? I mean, that's a conversation that needs to be had. It can't be just presupposed that when when somebody says, should we be skeptical of skepticism, we should understand skepticism. So in a sense, yes, you should be skeptical of skepticism.
I think what they're saying is how to go boldly on the attack and how to have the spirit, and I say the drive, the motivation to go out there and be diplomatic and a firebrand at the same time, perhaps, and to get the message out in a very good way, maybe.
Well, I'm not saying don't express confidence, but it's just how do you express your confidence is the issue, and that being angry typically is
Probably more destructive than anything. Probably.
Right, well, it's more destructive, and the research seems to indicate that people assume that your arguments aren't as good when you're overtly or too much anger. Though, I mean, I think if you have to really justify your anger, because when you're trying to cross ideological lines with people who have different values than you do, it's very easy for that message to be poorly received. And so it works great for in-group, not so great for out-group. That's the basic point.
This may just be my own twist, but I think what might be behind that question, or similar things that I've heard, is that some people feel that, so-called accommodationists or diplomats are somehow ashamed of our position in a way. And I say I'm personally an atheist. So I'm using myself as an example. I don't necessarily think that a diplomat is ashamed of his position, but I think sometimes it can be seen that way. It's like we should have, that's one of the arguments that I hear against diplomats, is that, we should have the courage of our convictions because we're right, and if you're being diplomatic, it shows that maybe you're not as committed, or that you have that you're weaker.
That is well versus diplomatic warrior.
Yeah. Can I ask for
It was Aristotle who said, the mark of enlightenment is being able to entertain a position without accepting it. I don't think diplomats come off as wimpy or wussy. Even though I say that in jest, they just come off as listeners. But the thing is, I don't think that firebrands don't come off as listeners. They just come off as more intolerant of people not playing fair, which once more I think is a good thing. But no, I certainly don't think that diplomats come off as weak or lacking the courage of their conviction.
I think there's really a spectrum of both. I think there's definitely diplomats that can come off as weak and that can come off as confident. There's definitely firebrands that can come off as having the courage of their convictions versus just being intolerant, and then there's no follow-up to that, just intolerant. So,
Isn't it possible to say,
Can I ask not to have discussion from the floor? I've only got a few more questions, and then if we still have time, because I want to respect the people who sent them in.